Hi and welcome. I'm Mary Jo, also known as Sojo, and this is my weekly update, number 15. Today is May 6th, 2023. Now this is where I talk about everything that I've worked on and finished and completed throughout the week. Now I usually have a previous finish up behind me to start out with. However, I have many things to hang up today, so I'm going to skip that part. Now, I will say that this week on my channel, I've posted my part 4 of my completed quilt trunk show. And I have also done the Cotton Cut Gnomes April. I've did the last block and I posted my finishing instructions on that. Now this coming week, I plan on posting the next part of my completed trunk show, which should be part 5. Now let's talk about what I've completed this week. I finished the binding on 2 quilts this week. One of them is this behind me. Now this was a quilt top that was in my 200 plus quilt top quilt series. And it was quilted, but I just did the binding. So we'll take a look at that. So just a reminder, here's a look at that quilting where I quilted that all over paisley pantograph on it. So, and there's the binding that I finally finished. And there's the label on the back. There it is. There's my label. So that's the first thing I completed this week. Now this alpaca llama quilt I had shown last week for the quilting, I finished the binding on it, so it is all done. But we'll take another look at that quilting binding. I'd also used Minky on the back of that, so it's a very warm and heavy quilt. So there's the quilting with the llamas on it. And I finished the binding, which I just used that green print that's right there in that scarf. Now this was done in all flannels with the Minky on the back. There's a llama. And that label, if I can find it. And there's the label right down there in the corner. So that one's all done. So I quilted 2 quilts on the long arm this week. One was a queen size and the other one was probably a larger queen to king size, but I bought them both quilted. This is one of them. Now this is not my quilt. This is a quilt that my mom had actually made and asked me to quilt for her. So I did. So we'll take a look at that quilting. So here is the quilting. It's got some hearts and butterflies and flowers all over it. We'll go up there. Look at the borders. Okay, we'll take a look at the backing. And then that's just a look at the yellow backing. So that's the first quilt that I managed to quilt. Now we'll take a look at the second one. Now this purple bargello is the next quilt I managed to quilt this week. Now this is a very large quilt. Matter of fact, I didn't realize how big it was. This was part of my 200 plus quilt series and it's been done for a while. Now I had bought a 3-yard piece of 108 backing. So it was 108 by 108. Well, when I put it in the long arm, it hung over the 108. Only about, you know, 1/2 inch to 1 inch on each side. So I was like, what do I do? So I ended up flipping the quilt and just praying it was going to be long enough, because I thought maybe it wasn't quite 108 wide. Maybe, I don't know. So I flipped it and kind of quilted it sideways, and I was just praying that it went all the way through, because I had already had the backing loaded on the long arm. And I figured if it didn't go all the way across, I was just going to cut off some of the borders all the way around, because it does have pretty large borders. I'll flip it around and show you. It's got some pretty wide borders. So I was quilting it, and I got to the end, and I had about 1 inch of backing left by the time I was done. So it all worked out. I didn't have to cut anything off. But I thought the quilt was maybe about 102 by 102-ish, but I guess it's just a little bit bigger than that. But regardless, it's still a big quilt. Let's take a look at the quilting. So there's the quilting, and I quilted in this whimsy pattern. Now the quilting doesn't really show up well on this, and that's okay, because on this Bargello style, I think the actual piecing is more important than the quilting on this particular quilt. But it's all done. Okay, let's take a look at the backing. And there's the backing I used on it. Now, I just want to say, I do not recommend heading it that close on your quilt and your backing. And usually I like to have about 4 or 5 inches all the way around. Now, I figured I knew it was going to be close, but I figured, oh, I can make it work, no problem. Well, I did make it work, but there was almost a problem. But like I said, my solution, if it didn't work out, I was just going to cut, you know, 1 inch or 2 off all the borders to make it work. But I didn't have to. All right, so let's look at what I finished piecing this week. So the next thing I worked on this week was my cotton cut April gnomes. I finished that last block, which is that egg block right there. Or at least that's what I think it is Easter eggs. And I put it all together in a quilt top. We'll take a little better look at it if I can. So there's the Easter egg block and the girl gnome block. And then we come down and we have the boy gnome and the other accent block. Now, I did work on 2 other quilt projects this week on piecing, and they were both previous sew sampler boxes. So I worked on the Starry Checkers quilt, and it's getting close to being done. Last time you saw this, I just had to sew basically these 4-patch units, which I did. I sewed those, and now I have them all pinned into rows. So I have 6 of these rows ready to go. So then when I take it over to the sewing machine, I'll just kind of do that web piecing that I talk about doing in my gnome videos. I'll do that again and get those sewn together. Now the other one I worked on was the Starflower quilt pattern. Now I was working on finishing like these little 9-patch units. I sewed these together, the three blocks into rows, and I've got them pinned together. So next time I go to the sewing and sew this, I can sew all of those into a 9-patch unit. Some more. And I think there's 12 of these all together. So I worked on that. And then I also worked on doing these foundation paper piece units. I did 4 of those and 4 of those. Which those are in there in that quilt. So that's what I worked on. All of my quilting projects that I worked on this week. So I didn't get a lot of piecing done per se, I don't think, but I did do a lot of quilting and binding. So hey, that's a plus. Now, let's talk about what I bought this week. Now, the first thing I bought was this Pressed Flowers Block of the Month for the Sew Sampler. I was on the fence whether I wanted to buy it or not. Couldn't decide. But it had been not in stock, for, the past month or so. And then I finally saw that it was in stock, so I ended up ordering it. And I must say, I'm glad I ordered it when I did because it was sold out the next day. So I got it. So I'm going to be doing the block of the month, the Sew Sampler Pressed Flowers block of the month. With that too. The other thing I ordered was I ordered something for my mom for Mother's Day. I ended up ordering her 2 Jolly Bars. And they come with a pattern on the back too. So that's what I bought this week. Now, let's see. Let's talk about my cross stitch. What did I do in cross stitch? Well, I'm still working on that same pattern, and I will be working on it for quite a while. Which, if you remember, it's this Christmas band sampler. Excuse me. Excuse me. It's definitely spring. So I am, let's see. I'll show you my progress in a minute. But I am still way up here where these reindeers are. That's where I am. So you can see how much farther I've got to go. Alright, I'll show you my progress. There's the top. There we go. I think last time I had only had one of these reindeers. So I finished those reindeers and now I'm on to working on this down here. But like I said, it's going to take me a long time to get that done. But it'll get done eventually. Okay. Let me put this back. And this is a 16 count Ada that I'm using. Now, I had finished that crochet hooded scarf I was working on. So what I am doing now is I am working on this little sweater thing. And this is from this Curvy Girl crochet book, and I'm working on this orange marmalade shell. That's what I decided to work on now. And I'm using alpaca yarn. Now this is just yarn that I had got at Hobby Lobby actually. This was some over there in the hand-dyed Hobby Lobby yarn. But there's where I am so far. we'll see how it turns out. Now, I've ripped this out 3 times already just because it seems really, really big. So I ripped it out 3 times. We're still going to use it. Worst case scenario, I finish it, it's too big, I rip it all out and do something else, right? I don't know. We'll see. I'll make it work somehow. But that's what I'm working on with that. And I've also made some progress on my diamond painting. Let's go take a look. So this is what my diamond painting is looking like so far. And this is from Diamond Art Club, called Adeline. When it's all done, that's what it will look like. So there it is. So that's everything that I worked on this week. Okay, let me know what you're working on in the comments below. And also, it's finally getting some spring weather. I'm pretty happy about that. So it's almost time to start planting all those flowers and gardens and things. Let me know what you're planting. All right, till next time. Bye.